Thanks for joining us at Church Experience Online. If you'd like to learn more, get connected, or help fuel the movement by giving, just click on the appropriate links on our website.
Well, welcome to Church Experience. We're so happy you guys are here today, and it's a new year, 2016. I mean, isn't that awesome? Come on, it's a new year. It's a new start, 2016. I'm looking forward to, especially here in 2 weeks, we're going to have our 1-year anniversary here at Church Experience. It'll be 1 year old. It's going to be a really cool party. I hope you show up for that. It's January 17th. I'm just really excited about this year for us. Year 2, we're going to be going into is this movement of Church Experience, and God's continuing to change lives, and I'm looking forward to this year ahead. Well, again, thank you for being here today. It's a new year. It's 2016, and we are starting a new journey for all of us, a new opportunity, and with new opportunities come new chances to take new ground in our lives. And so we're in this teaching series appropriately titled New, and today I'm specifically talking about taking new territory in our lives. And here's what I'm hoping to do. I'm hoping that what we can accomplish together is that I can equip you to take new ground, to take your life to a new level, to see God do some new things in your life. And I'm concerned that some of us, if we don't pause right now and retool a few things, that we're going to go through this next year and get a lot of just what we had last year. And when there's more available to us to tap into. Because see, here's the thing. I think we naturally tend to stay in our routines and do the same thing we've always done. And you know they say the definition of insanity, I've shared this before, is what? Is do the same thing you've always done and expect different results. And for us to make some changes that would lead to new in our lives, new ground, new territory that God would take in our lives, I think this would be well worth our time as we begin this new year. You know, a lot of people casually float into a new year, and they don't take it maybe as seriously as a gift as it really is. In 1 Corinthians 9:24, there's an interesting question. You know, in some ways it's stating the obvious, but it makes a clear point. It says, "Do you not know that in a race all the runners run, but only one gets the prize?" Saying, you know, when you've seen kids run or you've seen Olympic athletes on television, you see a pack of people running, they're all running, but only one of them is going to win the race. And it says, run in such a way as to get the prize. So you're in your own race, and no one around you can run that for you. You have to run your race. You're in your own lane, and you've been given a race to run that God's given you. It's called your life. It's that little dash between that year they're going to put on your tombstone when you were born and that year they're going to put on your tombstone when you died. And hopefully you get many great years in there, but that dash, that's your track that you're running on. That's your race. And you've been given one race to run, and you get to do it one time, and you can't go back and rerun it. You get this one race, and so make the most of it. And my hope is that you will be able to take some new territory in your life and see God do some different things and some new things in your life this year as we go into a new year. You're going to chase something this year. The question is just, what are you going to chase with your time? You're going to have the same amount of time as the person next to you. You have the same amount of days as the person behind you, the same amount of months as the person in front of you. No different. The only difference is that you're going to run your race in a certain way. You're going to pursue certain things. And I'm just asking, the things you pursue and chase this year, will they leave you fulfilled and better when you get to December from where you started in January? So what are you going to chase? I love playing chase. I always have since I was a kid. Now that I have kids, I get to play chase. And you know, sometimes I don't begin the chase, but I end up chasing. Like my kids will come to me when I'm in the middle of something. They'll say, "Hey, Dad, come chase me." I was mowing the yard the other day. It was in December. I was mowing the yard, and I just think that's cool that we live in a state where you can mow your yard in December. It's like for all my Michigan friends and family, like we get to mow our yards in December. So I'm mowing my yard. I'm outside with a sweatshirt on, a hoodie, and I'm going around. I'm mowing the yard, and one of my kids comes up to me and says, Dad, come chase me. And I'm like busy, I'm mowing the yard, and so I'm like, all right, I'll chase you later. And he starts taunting me. Like this is what they do, they try to get me to chase them. If you have kids around, you know it's like they try to say things like, well, you're not fast enough to catch me anyway. I don't think you could catch me, Dad. And they're saying all these kind of things to get me to want to play chase. Well, that usually works on me. So I usually jump in, but this time I'm in the middle of a project. I'm mowing the backyard. And so I'm thinking, I got to finish this project. And my kid's like, Dad, come chase me. And he's talking all kinds of smack to Dad. He's like, no way, you're not even faking. Your legs can't even keep up with me. All this kind of stuff, trying to get me to come chase him. And so finally I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to get this kid. I'm going to show him what's up, you know. So I pull the mower over onto the side of the house like I'm going to mow the side of the house, but I put the mower out towards the backyard, and I step around the corner, and I leave it running. So he sees the edge of the mower, but he can't see me from where he's standing. Well, of course, there's this little lever that you have to hold down to keep the mower running. So I quick rip my sweatshirt off with one hand. I tie it around this thing with a little knot. So the mower's staying stationary, but the engine's running, and I quick take off, and I run around the house behind him. And I creep up behind him. I can't wait to see him, and run up on him. So I finally spot him, and I run up to him, and I'm like, I got you, and his eyes get so big, and he's laughing really hard, laughs, and Dad got him, and it was just a cool moment to capture him. And I love chasing the kids, and it's the pursuit, it's the adventure of it that's fun. And man, you're going to chase something this year. You're going to run, and your legs are going to take you places. You're going to go different directions. But man, I just want to know, am I chasing the right things? And am I pursuing what God wants me to pursue this year? And am I running the right race that's going to lead to the prize, which is God saying, well done, when I get to the end, that it was a fulfilling life, that it mattered for eternity? That's the kind of life that I hope we can all live. And so here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a few moments, and we're going to look at a great story in the Bible where a guy took on new, where he did what I was just sharing in that story, like that he chased after something. I spent some time over the New Year. What I was doing is I was thinking about you and how we together can take new ground in our lives. And so what I did is I spent some time studying this story, and I wrote down 3 specific steps, and then a caution too at the end, the 4th thing, but 3 steps on things that you and I can do to take new territory. And so let's jump into this story. Let's take a look and see together what it is that we can do to take new ground in 2016. It's a great story about a man pursuing a vision that God gave him. His name is Nehemiah. So Nehemiah, he was the cupbearer to a king. Now the cupbearer's job is a pretty important job. You have to be a high trustworthy person to be the cupbearer. And one of the things you might do is you might sample the drink before it goes to the king's lips to make sure that none of his enemies have poisoned it. Because, the king would make a lot of enemies as he took over different kingdoms, as he crushed certain people or threw certain people in prison. He'd make a lot of enemies, and so there's some who would try to kill him. And so the cupbearer's job was to help in some ways protect the king. And Nehemiah was the cupbearer to the king. He was in close proximity to the king. And in Nehemiah chapter 2, verse 1, this is how it begins. In the month of Nisan, in the 20th year of King Artaxerxes, when wine was brought before him, I took the wine and I gave it to the king. I had not been sad in his presence before. So the king asked me, why does your face look so sad when you are not ill? This can be nothing but sadness of heart. So the king was close enough to him that he knew there was something up in his life. Now, if you read chapter 1, you would know that Nehemiah had just got some devastating news. Jerusalem is kind of like his hometown. It's kind of like if you got word from your hometown, and it was all in disarray and disorder, it was a mess. Well, Jerusalem had its walls broken down. Its gate had been crushed. It was in ruins, and this was in part because of the sin of God's people. And so this city, that his home, like where his heart was in ruins. Where his ancestors are from, it's in ruins, and he gets this news, and so he's sad, and he can't hide it. And so the king spots it, and he's like, hey, what's up? Verse 3, I was very much afraid, but I said to the king, may the king live forever. Why should my face not look sad when the city where my ancestors are buried lies in ruins, and its gates have been destroyed by fire? See, he had something that was bothering him. There was something in his heart. It wasn't like an agitation or annoyance. There's something in his heart that was bothering him because it was something that was not right. Like there's this thing that there's this need, there's this problem, there's potential here, and it's bothering me. And it got in his heart, and it messed him up in a good kind of way. It became the genesis of what would become vision for him to eventually, as you see in the story here, go back to Jerusalem and rebuild the wall for this city that was known as God's city for God's people. And so God broke his heart over something. And in your notes, if you'd like to write some things down, I'd love for you to write this down. I want you to think about when you survey your life, what bothers you? When you survey your life, what bothers you? You know, when you think about the landscape of your life and your reality, I don't think we stop and do that, just survey our life enough. I don't think we pull back enough. And did you know that that's a very biblical thing to do? You know the Bible tells us to survey our lives, to think about our lives. I try to do a little bit of it every day. When I do my time alone with God and I'm praying, I'm reading the Bible, I try to also spend some time reflecting on my life. And I'll journal, I do some other things, but like for me, I just try to think, because listen, the Bible says this in Haggai 1:7, it says, this is what the Lord Almighty says. This is God's word. It says, this is what the Lord Almighty says. Give careful thought to your ways. It says it again in Proverbs 14:8. The wisdom of the prudent is to give thought to their ways. It says it in another way in the New Testament, 1 Timothy 4:16. Watch your life and your doctrine, your beliefs closely. Watch your life and your doctrine closely. Persevere in them, because if you do, you'll save yourself and your hearers. So it says in multiple places, in multiple ways, those verses are on the bottom there of your notes. You can look those up later. It tells us to watch our life closely. Think about our ways. Consider our path. So have you taken time lately to pull back and just think about your life? You just ask some really important questions like, where's my life headed? What direction is it going? Is my life fulfilling? Is it prioritized? Will it matter for eternity? Will it take the path that leads to the right eternity? You know, what's my life shaping up to look like? And if I could play it out for a number of years ahead, like where's my life headed? Where's the trajectory? And I don't think we pause enough to like think through where our lives are going. And we just get busy running on the treadmill of life. And sometimes we never get anywhere because we don't pull back and make sure we're running the right race that God has us on. You know, sometimes as we survey our life, there's something that bothers us. And that's the second part of that statement there, is what bothers us. Because Nehemiah, when he surveyed his life and he got this news, he found that there was something that he could not overlook. There was something that was not that should be. So what is it that should be in your life, that could be in your life? When you think about maybe your life, or if you have a family, or your career, or maybe your character, your relationship with God, what's not as it should be? What's out of order? What's not prioritized? Now you can quick think of a few New Year's resolutions, like most people. I want to lose a little weight. I want to start sleeping more. I want to, do this or advance a few things. I mean, it's not easy to come up with a list of things that you want to change, but I'm just saying, what bothers you? Not a casual annoyance. There's always things that if you let them could annoy you or agitate you, but I'm talking about what bothers you. What in your heart do you say, man, this needs to change in my life, in my character, and in a relationship, and in some important part of who I am in my life? Like, what is not as it should be? What is not as it could be? And if it were that, it would be better and different. And what would God want in my life? Maybe to help you think through this question, what bothers you, just think about it in a couple other ways. Like one way is, in 2015, where did you hesitate? Where did you hesitate? Where God was calling you to step up or to step out, where did you hesitate? Maybe where did you delay obedience? Where you knew God was asking you to do something, you delayed it, you put it off, you hesitated on it. Maybe it's honoring God in some certain way or following Him in some certain step. Is there anything that you've delayed on? Sometimes the problems and the unanswered prayers of our lives, those things that bother us, sometimes those things, like it was with Nehemiah and his story, those are great soil for God to really show up and show off. Really, it's the problems that you're thinking, man, I'm really bummed about this, but have you ever thought about how that means that that's also a right potential for God to really show up and show off in your life? Because Nehemiah had a significant problem, but as you're going to see in the story as it unfolds, is that God shows up and like something great is accomplished that began with a problem. And so identifying the problem in some ways might be identifying the next miracle in your life. It might be identifying the next opportunity in your life, the next thing that God wants to do. So what needs to change? What area of your life needs to be different as you go into this new year? Nehemiah had something that bothered him. It was broken down walls of Jerusalem. And in verse 4, let's go on and see what happens. The king notices that there's an issue with Nehemiah. He states that, there's something going on. In verse 4, the king said to me, what is it? Nehemiah, what is it you want? What a gift, really. What a gift to have someone look you in the eyes and say, what is it you want? And maybe you haven't had that conversation, so here it is. What is it that you want? because we don't stop enough to pull back and ask that question, what is it really that I want? And I think that's a very important question that you begin with, but I think there's a deeper, more important question that trumps what do I want? And that's, what does God want? It's going to God here at the beginning of this new year and saying, God, you can do all things. You can bring about new things in my life where things seem like there's a dead end or I'm hitting a wall. God, you can bring about new direction, new wisdom, new opportunities, new resources. God, you're a God of all things. You can make everything new in my life. And so, God, here's what's going on. Help me know what you want. What race you want me to run this year? Because I'm going to chase something with my time. What should I be chasing, God? And Nehemiah is given a gift by being asked this question, what is it you want? And he's asked by the king, and this is how he responds. It says, then I prayed to the God of heaven. First thing he does is he goes with that question to God. God, what is it that you want? I prayed to the God of heaven, it says, and I answered the king. If it pleases the king, and if your servant has found favor in his sight, let him send me to the city in Judah where my ancestors are buried, so that I can rebuild it. So he's given a question, what do you want? He goes to God in prayer, and he answers the king with a very clear and concise vision. This is what I think needs to happen. In your notes, I think the second thing, after you've answered and wrestled with, and I hope you'll take time to do that this week, is wrestle with what bothers you, and this morning even, but then seek God's clear direction and favor. That's the next step. Write that down. Seek God's clear direction and favor. And you say, God, what is it that you want? You know, I think this clear word is so important. Maybe you'd want to even circle that, because to get clarity on what God wants, that's a game changer. But clarity, let's be clear, is very easy to confuse. It's really easy for life to stay ambiguous, and it's hard to get clear on things. In fact, confusion happens when we make bad assumptions, when we're not clear on things. And if you need a real life example to be reminded of how things can be ambiguous and unclear, then check this out.
Hello. Well, how much are they asking?
Well, that's a lot of money for a deck.
Well, I hate to tell you this, but you're getting robbed. Did you hear me? You're getting robbed. Ow! Stop!
AmeriQuest, an open-minded, equal opportunity lender.
You know, one minute you're telling your buddy that he's getting robbed for how much he's paying for his deck, and the second moment you're getting mugged by the guy who works at it's like just a lack of clarity on what's actually going on can bring a lot of pain into our lives. It'd be like mentioning the word bomb accidentally as you're walking through the airport terminal. I mean, it's like you're just asking to get thrown on the ground and get all messed up. See, in our culture, there's a lot of messages that come our way. There's a lot of information. There's a lot of people telling us what we think we need, and a lot of people telling us what we should believe and how we should act and dress and who we should follow and what we should be about and how we should live our lives. There's all kinds of messages that you're going to get in 2016. But it's really important to get one message clear, and that's like, God, what do you want from me? How do you want me to live? What pleases you? And run that race. Because, man, you're going to have all kinds of people pulling you into their lane and saying, you should run this race. You should go here and do that. And you just need to come before God like Nehemiah did and say, God, what race do you want me to run? God, what is it that will please you? And so in your notes, I think it's important to seek clear direction and go before God with your life, to seek His favor. Because if God is for it, then you already have victory. You just need to be faithful and follow through. But if God's not in it, and it's your idea, not God's idea, then you're wasting your time. You're wasting your life. Because God has given you enough time to accomplish everything that He's asking you to do. He's given you plenty of time. He's given you all the resources you need. He's given you everything you need to accomplish what He's asking you to do today. But He's not giving you enough time to do everything He wants you to do, plus all the extra things that you want to do as well. So when God gives us direction, and we know that that direction is going to lead to the win, that direction is going to lead to the most fulfilling life, that is going to lead to the least amount of regret, the most incredible place where we want to arrive. That's God's path. So we start going down that path, and then we add a few things, a few detours, if you will, and we say, well, God, I'm going to take this side street for a little bit. I'm going to spend a few months of this year on this project, and I'm going to spend a few of my weeks and days doing this as well. And then God's like, well, you're out of time. You're not going to accomplish rebuilding the walls in your life. And Nehemiah knew what it was that he needed to go after, and he went after that with tenacity and with passion because God had called him to it. And he got real clear on it, and he gave the king a clear response. It's the walls that need to be rebuilt. It's the gate that needs to be rebuilt. And that's what I'm going to pursue. What are you going to pursue this year? And as you're thinking that through, let me just ask you a few questions as you bring it before God, as you think about it. Maybe even right now, like maybe you're writing down some things. Maybe you're praying about it. You're thinking about it. Is it biblical? Is this match up with who I know God to be? What I'm going to chase in my life? Does this line up with Scripture? Does this have integrity and make sense? Have you sought advice? This is a really good test for me because you know what? Honestly, in our human nature, you know what you and I want to do? We get an idea, because ideas are not hard to come by. You want a New Year's resolution? Sit down for 5 minutes with a blank piece of paper. You can look at your life and come up with a few goals off the top of your head. I'm going to do this and change this and make this. I mean, it's not easy to come up with new. The hard part is following through and making it happen and doing the right things, right? I mean, we all know that. But if you come up with a new idea, a new plan, a new project in your life, but it's the wrong thing for you, you know what you'll tend to do? Not ask advice. Because you'll know in the back of your mind this thing that you want to do, this new that you want to do, might not be the best thing for you. And so you want to ask somebody else what they think about it because you really know that they'll probably say it's not the best thing for you. So have you sought advice about it? Is it biblical? Have you sought God's counsel? Have you sought advice from other believing, mature friends? Hey, what do you think about this? This is what I'm thinking about. Have you brought it to God in prayer? And I'm not talking about casual, half-hearted prayer. I'm talking about intense prayer, maybe fasting, and we don't have time to get into all that today, but going before God intensely and bringing your heart to Him and say, hey, God, this is what's going on, and what do you think about this, God, and seeking His direction. Have you sought clarity before you start running down the track? Is this just another cool idea? Is this someone else's idea? Is this something that I'm being pressured into? Is this a selfish ambition? You don't know those things until you get with God and you search your heart and allow Him to search your heart and mind. So seek clear direction, seek God's favor, because if God's in it, man, then you have every resource you need. You have every strength you need. You have everything you need to accomplish the vision God's beginning and developing in your heart. So make sure He's in it. Let's go back to this story and find this third really important step for us. And down in verse 6, after he gives his response, it says, then the king with the queen sitting beside him asked Nehemiah, how long will your journey take? And when will you be back? So in other words, Nehemiah, it's great you have this vision. And the king has probably heard many people present vision to him. Hey, king, I think we should go take this land. Hey, king, I think we should build this. Hey, king, I have a new idea. Man, if you had $1 for every time someone in your life has come to you with a new idea, hey, I think we ought to start this. We ought to change this. We ought to add this. And the new ideas are abundant. And the king knows that new ideas are easy. And to come with a new goal is easy. And to say, I'm going to go do this is easy to say. But it's hard to do. And so he asks him another really helpful question. What's your plan? How long will your journey take? When will you be back? End of verse 6. It pleased the king to send me, so I set a time. Verse 7. I also said to him, if it pleases the king, may I have letters to the governors of Trans-Euphrates so that they will provide me safe conduct until I arrive in Judah. And may I have a letter to Asaph, keeper of the royal park, so he will give me timber to make beams for the gates of the citadel of the temple and for the city wall and for the residence I will occupy. And because the gracious hand of my God was on me. See, he sought God's hand first before he sought the hand of the king, before he sought the resources he needed and the actual plan. He sought God. He said, because God's hand was on me. He had God's favor. He said, because of that, the king granted my requests. Verse 9, so when I went So I went to the governors of Trans-Euphrates and gave them the king's letters. The king had also sent army officers and cavalry with me, in abundance, all that he needed to accomplish the vision that God put in his heart. I find it interesting that Nehemiah didn't just rush out the door when God put a vision on his heart. He said, all right, that's it. Let's go. And he just ran out. Didn't just up and go. It wasn't a reactive kind of thing. It wasn't a uncalculated, unstrategic, unplanned move. See, he knew God had put a serious vision in his heart, that God had broken his heart with an important vision and an important plan. And so because God's vision was so important, this was not something he could approach casually like what he's going to eat for dinner that night. I don't need to know what I'm eating for dinner tomorrow night until about 30 minutes beforehand. In fact, really about 30 seconds beforehand. And I don't really need to know. Okay? What am I going to put together? What am I going to make? What am I going to eat? Those things you can come up with real quick. But if you're going to go after a God-sized vision, you better make a plan. Now, God can work through spontaneousness. God can work in a moment. That's clear throughout Scripture. You don't always need a plan for every certain thing that God does. But when God puts something really important on your heart, what I see is that Nehemiah had a plan. He said, King, well, if I'm going to rebuild these walls, I have to get to Jerusalem, and there's a chance that it'll be dangerous for me to travel through and get there. Could you give me some letters of safe transit, safe conduct? And King, I'm going to need some supplies, not only for the wall, but did you catch that? He said, even for the residence that I'll be in while I'm there. He knows that he's leaving his home to go to a new place. He's going to need a place to stay while he works on the wall. So I'm going to need timber for the wall, timber for a place to... He goes to the king with these specific requests. He says, here's my plan of action. So in your notes, if you're writing this down, I want to point this out, is that we have to make a plan. That's the important word there. Make a plan and act on it. We need to make a plan and act on it. You know, different personalities lean different ways. Some people lean more into planning and dreaming and thinking and ideas. Some people's personalities lean more into action, making it happen, moving ahead. Those are both good things. It's how God made you. You got to maximize whatever strengths that he's given you. But all of us, when we're given a vision by God, when there's something in our lives that we're sitting here and we're pulling back 2016, man, there's something that, man, if I live like I did in 2015, it's not gonna become all that it could be. Like my life's not gonna be like it should be. Like there's something that needs to change. And so here's this vision God's stirring up within me, this genesis of this vision that's coming from something that's bothering me. Like this needs to happen. This should happen. This could happen. You bring that to God, but bring it to him with an open heart. But say, God, all right, so what do I need to do about it? What step do you want me to take? What's the plan? And it takes courage to step out and act on a plan like Nehemiah going before the king. It takes boldness. It says that he was, there's kind of like this fear you can kind of see in it. Like he respectfully and reverence brought before the king, not knowing what would happen. Over Christmas, I was talking to a family member, and they said something that was so good. We're with both of our extended families, and when we're talking, they said, when's the last time you did something for the first time? And I wrote that down. I was like, man, that's so good, because I think we tend to retreat into our routines. I know I get comfortable in going with the flow of normal life. And God calls us so often to step out. You see where a lot of the miracles happened in the Bible, and someone had to step out of a boat. Someone had to step out into the riverbed to cross over. Somebody had to step into a new land that they were unfamiliar with. See, there had to be a step into the unfamiliar. I heard it said one time, don't go where there's a path. Go instead where there's no path and leave a trail. You got to step out into the unknown sometimes. Sometimes you have to let go of your comfort, the familiar. Sometimes to see God do something new, you have to step out and step up. And that takes courage. So maybe you're only incrementally experiencing all that God has for you because you're not willing to let go and trust him with more. So I'm just asking, where do you need to let go in faith, take a bigger step into what God has for you in this next year? Is there some area in your life where you're hesitating on and all right, God, I need to trust you with this. I'm all in. I'm not just halfway in, God. I'm all in and following you. It's going to take more than just the courage to come up with the idea. and to take the first step, but it's going to take commitment and sacrifice to follow through. Nehemiah didn't just have a plan. He acted on it, and he stepped out, and he followed the plan. He went to the new place. He went to Jerusalem. He started working on the wall. We're going to get into next week. I'm really excited about some of the latter half of this story. There's some really cool things that happen. I'm really looking forward to that message next week. But man, you're going to see he's rebuilding and doing the work of it. He's faithful and seeing God work. I came across this quote I want to share with you. It's on the screen. Doug Firebaugh, he says, "Every day do something that will inch you closer to a better tomorrow." Every day, do something that will inch you closer to a better tomorrow. That's called daily discipline. I have 5 of them, at least, that I do, 5 or 6 that I do every single day. You know, first and foremost, praying and reading the Bible. Those are the 2 kind of cornerstone things that I'm not going to live a day without doing that. I'm going to do that every day. Like, that's connecting with my Creator. It's so important. What are those foundations? Because, you know, you win a discipline, they say, in one area of your life, it carries over into other areas of your life. So what are those disciplines in your life, those things that you need to do incrementally to take you where you need to go? Last year for me, I felt like I wanted to get closer to God. I felt like I had a good relationship with Him, but I wanted to pray more. I wanted to spend more time in prayer. So I told you guys about this last year, that I decided that, man, I found myself every day waking up checking my phone. And that was the first thing I did. That's probably what a lot of us do. You know, you roll out of bed, you see what time it is, and then you check your phone. You're like, okay, what's my schedule? Maybe you keep your list of things you need to do on there. Maybe you're just checking to see messages that might have come in while you were asleep. What do I need to do? All of a sudden you're reacting to life again, right? And I just thought, man, you know, I want to check in with God, and I want to spend my first moments with Him. And so I made a discipline this last year that I'm still doing, is when I wake up in the morning, I pray. And before I check my phone, I check in with my Father. And I'm just talking to God, and it's a simple, hey, God, thank you so much for this day you've given. I commit this day to you. And I might pray about something that's on my calendar that's coming up. I might pray about something that's on my mind. I might pray about a person. I'm praying for you a lot of times. I'm just whatever's that comes to mind, I'm just talking. I'm just beginning the conversation. Maybe a minute, maybe a few minutes. And then I'm back on my phone, I'm working, I'm going throughout the day, and I've tried as much as I can bring God in throughout the rest of the day, but it helps me to start the day that way. So I feel like God helped me win that this last year. And this year I'm like, well, I want to go deeper. I want to go more. I want to spend more time with God. And Thessalonians, it tells us to pray continually. So this year, here's what I'm trying. I wrote down like 10 different prayers for me for this year that I'm praying, things I'm praying about, 5 different categories of my life. I'm just like, you know, from family to my relationship with God, my character, your ministry, serving the Lord and serving you guys. I mean, there's just the different areas of my life. I wrote down a couple things in each area. And I said, all right, God, here's my prayer for this year. You can call it a goal or whatever, but for me, it's like this thing I'm praying through. And one of those is I want to, one of the things I want to accomplish this year, I want to get closer to God in my prayer life. I want to spend more time just connecting with God. I don't want to go for like these huge chunks of hours and be so busy doing whatever I'm doing, even good things, even stuff for the Lord, but I'm not checking with Him and, you know, doing it with Him. So I'm like, how do I do that? Because, you know, I'm a guy, 100%. I get focused on something. I'm doing that. How do I bring God more into it? And so I thought, you know what I do all day long is I'm on my phone. So I get a phone call, or I get a message, or I'm on my calendar, or my to-dos, and I'm on my phone, picking it up all the time, checking in on my phone. I'm like, you know, that really helped me start the day, right? How about this year, what I'm going to try is when I pick up my phone, and I'm checking my phone for something, either before or after I do that, and I set my phone down, I'm just going to try to check in with God. Maybe it's about whatever's going on. Maybe it's praying for wisdom on a decision I need to make based on a message I just got. Maybe it's help based on something that I'm thinking about. Maybe it's just enjoying the moment, and it tells us to give thanks always. Also in 1 Thessalonians, it tells us to give thanks continually. You know, maybe it's just giving God thanks. Thank you, God, for this day. And I've started doing that. Now that we're into this new year, it's really hard. So 6 months from now, I may have totally failed at this because I check my phone a lot. And I realized, man, that's hard to do. And so I may not be able to do it all the time, but even if a few times a day that I wouldn't have normally prayed, if it just causes me to remember, to pray more, like, then that's a win. Maybe for you, it's every time you turn the ignition to your key and you start to your work to commute. That turning the ignition is for you. It helps remind you to start up your prayer life, and you're going to bring your requests before God during your commute to work. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's while you exercise. And you're like, I want to get healthier this year. I want to lose some weight. So while I do that, that's the time every day I'm going to pray. I don't know. There's 101 reasons or ways that you can do this. But I'm just saying, come up with a plan and try it. And if you fail, you're going to be better that you at least attempted and failed than if you hadn't tried at all. And don't let failure prevent you from moving ahead, because you've tried things before, like I have many times, and failed at it. You said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to work at this. And it didn't come together like you thought. But that's okay. You tried and you learned something. And if you learn something and get up every time you fall, then you move ahead. But if you stop trying, that's where you stop advancing. So where maybe have you drawn back into your security and your comfort like Nehemiah, where you need to take a step out and say, all right, God, you're not done with me yet. You got me here for a reason. I still have breath in my lungs for a reason. So you have a plan for me. So what's the plan, God? Get clear on that. Make your plan. It doesn't have to be complicated. In fact, it's better if it's simple, and then act on it. And that's what Nehemiah did, and it changed everything. It changed everything. So, over Christmas, I was hanging out with my two brothers up in Michigan, and we're all so different. Like, it's so funny. Like, when we get together, I'm the oldest of three bros, and my middle brother, just to give you a little example of who he is, I would call him like the redneck brother. So he's like just all into hunting and guns and just, I mean, he would just love to be out in the middle of nowhere with a weapon and be able to shoot stuff. Like that's, I mean, he brought 2 different guns to the family Christmas party. I see him in the kitchen with my other brother, and he's like, check out this new handgun. And then he pulls out this big long rifle and goes, check this out. I was like, at Christmas even. I mean, it's like, that's just who he is, rolling around in his truck. That's just the kind of guy he is, and he's hilarious. And so we're talking over Christmas. He's like, yeah, man, opening day hunting season. He's like, I put this picture on my Facebook page. He's like, I put this picture on there of this 10-point buck. He's like, you should have seen how many comments I got. Man, everybody was lighting up my page. They're telling me about this. Man, what a great deer. What a great buck. That's awesome. Man, 9 a.m. on opening day of hunting season, you already got this deer. Man, that's amazing. And he's like, I didn't reply to any of them. I just let him talk. And all these people was talking about how great it was, how early I got this deer, all these things. He's like, I didn't say anything because I didn't shoot the deer. He's like, I just found a great picture. I never claimed I shot it. I just posted it. I just put it on there, opening day, 9 a.m., and everyone's, woo, you know. And he's like, I didn't say I shot it, but, you know, let him go for a ride. He was having fun. You know, and it's funny how assumptions, when we make assumptions in certain areas, and it can be dangerous because we may be off. And I just want to pause before I get to this last, really important part of this story. There's just one more verse in this story of Nehemiah. Before we get to that, there's one more thing I want you to write down. Before we get to that, I just want to stop here for a second. Just take a couple quick minutes. You know, we're going into our 1-year anniversary, January 17, 2 weeks from now. I'm really excited about it. Excited about starting a new year, which is our 2nd year for Church Experience and this movement that God's birthing, this brand new church. I'm so excited about what's happening. The lives are being changed. I mean, over 100 people that have been baptized this last year. I mean, there's all kinds of cool stuff going on. But I don't want to assume that you know where we're going or why we're doing this. I don't want to assume that you have a plan for your spiritual growth. Because maybe you don't. Maybe you're just kind of going along, going with the flow, and you're here, so that's huge. That says a lot about the initiative, but maybe that's all there is to it. So, you know, I go to church on some Sundays. Every once in a while, I pray when I'm in a jam or at a mealtime, but maybe that's it. So I don't want to assume that. You have a plan or that maybe you know. So here, let me just take a couple quick minutes. Why are we doing this? No, this is a football. Here's the basic. This is why we're doing it. We believe God wanted us to start Church Experience, and we all are in this in the first year. It's still the first year. We're in this together, starting this in the first year. Why are we together doing this? Because we want to see more people experience life in Jesus Christ. We want to see one more person experience life in Jesus Christ. And as long as there's one more person in our community that doesn't yet know Jesus, let's think about it, that's not in a relationship with their Father. One more person that's not in a relationship with their Heavenly Father, that's not experienced the amazing forgiveness of God. One person that's living without hope, not only of eternity, like what happens when I'm gone, but that promise of eternity, but the promise of God's companionship and friendship in this life, that's not yet connected to the amazing community that is the church and the relationships that come from that. The one more person that's not yet experiencing deep in their heart the joy and the peace that comes from stepping out and following God. One more person that's not experiencing the purpose of serving and following and Jesus' footsteps and seeing Him work in miraculous ways in their life that's not yet dependent upon the strength of their Father in heaven. I mean, as long as there's one more that has not yet experienced the best life possible, which is life in Jesus, then we're on mission. So that's why we're here. Help one more person experience life in Jesus Christ. And then there's kind of a roadmap for like what we think would really help someone's life change. Because we have a plan. We think what we're doing is so important that we shouldn't just haphazardly go about it. So if you're saying, well, how can I really grow and be different? Well, there's probably a lot of different ways. And we're not saying this is the plan or the only plan. We're just saying here, in fact, we're not even calling it a plan. These are our 7 passions, things that we're passionate about, that we think will help someone experience life in Jesus Christ. They're all 2 words. And so, I mean, you don't need to write these down, but you can. I'm just going to go through them. It's experience and worship. So you're doing that right now. Experience worship. Not just here, but in the way we live with gratefulness, praise, faith, living a life of worship, experiencing worship. Being a part of a modern worship service, that's a part of it. Taking a day off each week to rest in God's presence, come and worship Him and resting from work. That's important. Experience worship. Experiencing change. That's another thing. This is a roadmap for us. To experience change, to help people commit to and walk closely with God on a daily basis. So not just commit to Him and be baptized. That's so important. That's huge. People are stepping into that, but also to commit to walk with Him on a daily basis, be disciplined and daily pursuing God through reading the Bible and prayer, reflecting on their life, like walking with God. That's huge. Experiencing change. 3, experiencing relationships. Living in a biblical, Jesus-centered community. That's what we're about, is connecting. We love seeing the unconnected get connected. We have life groups we're going to be talking about here coming soon, and in February, you're going to hear more about that the next semester of life groups, and so many people have got connected with friendships. Investing time with other believers, families, friends coming together. I mean, just connecting around Jesus and Him being at the center of our relationships is huge. Experiencing serving, that's the 4th thing. Learning that my life is not about myself, but it's about God using me for the benefit of others, is the messages you heard last week. So well put by Kevin Queen that Jesus disadvantaged Himself for our advantage. And in serving, through even simple things, we set aside our agenda for God's agenda in people's lives, and we lead, influence others. We influence culture. We have a culture of serving here, honoring those who serve and lead and making a difference in Him, and volunteering, making an impact. And we have a handful of ministries from children, students, all kinds of exciting stuff happening. I mean, I don't know if you realize this, but every Sunday while we're in here, and I'm getting to teach you, there's people teaching the kids. Many of you bring kids, or you have grandkids or friends of kids, and they're down in those 4 classrooms and in the concourse, and they're learning about Jesus, and they're being cared for and loved on. And some people came to the first service and attended so that they could stick around an extra hour instead of going to lunch or whatever, so that they could hang out and invest and pour into the next generation. And we had some people that helped and served middle school students that first service, during that time they had together. We have people that are pouring their lives into elementary kids and loving on babies and investing in the next generation, making a difference. So experiencing serving, experience generosity, unleashing financial generosity to help the poor. We had a goal to give away $15,000 in December. We exceeded that, and I get to tell you about that at the end of the message today. I'm really excited to announce to you what we got to do in December. It's so cool. To help the poor, to start new churches, to make a difference beyond what God's doing here, to not only just experience generosity that way, to make a difference in those whose lives who need Christ or need tangible help, but to live generously towards each other. And I see that all the time, people living generously with their time towards each other, putting others' needs first and helping other people. It's incredible. Someone had a goal last week, or a couple weeks ago for Christmas. I'm not sure if it actually happened or not, but they were talking about there was someone who needed a Christmas tree at Church Experience. They found out about it, and they were going to try to find a way to find that person's car and get a Christmas tree strapped on top of their car while they were in service. And I mean, that's just the heart of people here, like to help others. I just love that. Experience missions, the 6th thing. Living on mission, investing in relationships with the spiritually lost, so that they can come to experience Jesus. That happens through our strategic conversations we have with people, loving on people, loving people to Jesus, helping people live a focused life on mission. And 7th, experiencing growth. Helping people take steps closer to God, becoming leaders. We have opportunities like First Class, where you're going to hear about that. It's coming soon. Early part of 2016, again, we're going to have another chance for First Class people to take that first step, learn more how to get connected, how to get involved is what I love about that. But we're also, one of the things that's on the top of my list, I'm really excited about 2016, is we're going to develop and provide some growth classes for people who want, those over 100 people who were baptized and took steps of faith this last year, to have a plan for them and to equip them to grow in their faith and to learn more, to go deeper at how to, maybe you'd say, I want to learn how to really pray. I want to learn how to really read the Bible or follow God. We're going to provide some opportunities. We're going to use some technology, some cool stuff that we're working on that are going to be opportunities to help you connect more with your Creator. It's going to be awesome. And so helping people take steps, maybe leadership, maybe going on a mission trip with your life group and doing something really cool to make an impact in the world. I just would love to see God use these 7 things we're passionate about to make an impact in our community. So God may change our plan along the way, but we have one. And I didn't want to assume that you knew that. But man, there's actually steps you can take to get more involved in making an impact in the world, and that we together can do, because we think what we're doing to help people experience life in Jesus is so important, like what Nehemiah was doing. We can't not have a plan. We can't just casually go about our life. We're going to invest this year purposefully in making an impact. So here's my question. What's your next step? What's your next step? You need to do it now. You may have heard this, but delayed obedience is actually disobedience. My son, one of my boys came in the door the other day, and the door was open. I had a bug within 5 minutes of that conversation. It was flying around the house, landing on my computer screen. Like, I don't like to have the door open too long and have all the bugs coming in and out. So he had the door open. He was standing there in the doorway talking to me, and I just kind of said, hey, would you just go ahead and shut the door and come on in? And he thought what he was saying was more important than obeying Dad. So he decided he was going to finish telling me everything that he wanted to tell me first and then shut the door. And so I let him talk, and I said, hey, could you go ahead and shut the door and come here for a second? And he wanted to go back outside and play, and so I said, just come here for a second. So he shut the door, and he came over, and I said, hey, man, I go, you know how when I asked you to, like, shut the door and tell me? And he's like, yeah. He's like, you know, it's more important to obey. That God tells us in the Bible to honor your father and mother. In fact, it says this is the first commandment, that it may go well with you. You may live a long life on the earth, and he's telling us to learn from our parents, honor your parents. I said, it's important for you to shut the door first, or whatever mommy or dad ask you to do, obey, and then do what you want to do. Not put what you want to do first. Now, I just told you about earlier at the beginning, like how we have so much fun together, and we were chasing each other, and I told you a couple funny stories at the beginning of some of the stuff we do. But what I have learned at parenting is that you can't be all fun all the time. You have to have boundaries and discipline for kids, because when they're young adults, when they're older, and I used to work with high school students for a lot of years, if all they get at home is all fun, that kid's a mess when they're a young adult, because they don't know what it's like to be disciplined, to say no to something, to have someone else say no, to have boundaries. Some of us had parents who did not get that balance right. If you're a parent, you're not going to get it right. I don't get it right all the time. But that balance of fun and friendship and boundaries and disciplines, if you're around the next generation, if you're in some ways, maybe you don't have kids, but you will one day, listen in. If you're around children, they're not your own, listen in. It's important, because all fun leads to a mess. All discipline and boundaries and trying to keep things in order all the time, but no fun and no friendship, there's regret in that too, because there's no companionship when they're older. So thinking through that balance, kids get our leftovers too often. I heard one pastor, his name is Andy Stanley, said one time, the greatest thing you do with your life might not be something you do or develop. It might be someone you raise. And whether it's your kid or someone else's, just the next generation, investing your life in the next generation, that might be the greatest thing you do with your life, is raising up someone. And I don't want to assume, thinking about parenting, all this is a side point. I don't think that all of us had great parents growing up. I'm thankful my parents stayed together and had a good marriage, and they weren't perfect. But I think that some people have had bad experiences, so you have reasons why you don't want to do certain things with your kids. But your reasoning explains you, it just doesn't excuse you. And you have a responsibility, if you've been entrusted with the next generation in some way, maybe you're a teacher, maybe you have kids, to pour into them and make them a priority. I love that we get to do that every weekend in Kid Experience with dozens of kids, to pour our lives into them, because they're going to be the future, not only of the church, but of the world, and they're going to make a difference in the world beyond what you and I can. And we pour into them and shape God's heart in their hearts and help them avoid a lot of the messes that we've made along. It's going to change the world in that way. Delayed obedience, though, is disobedience. Where are you delaying? Where are you hesitating? All right, God, let me finish first what I want to do before I honor you and listen to you. Let's go to the last verse in this story, back to Nehemiah chapter 2. Nehemiah has got these letters. He's heading out to Jerusalem to rebuild the wall. It says in verse 10, when Sanballat the Horonite and Tobiah the Ammonite official heard about this, they were very much disturbed, as someone had come to promote the welfare of the Israelites. They were disturbed that Jerusalem was being rebuilt. And they kind of liked the status quo. They liked the way things were, and that Jerusalem was not this strong city among them. And so they were disturbed. And if you read throughout the rest of the story is awesome. You're going to see the opposition they faced while rebuilding the wall. And in your notes, this final thing to write down is for you and I, as we change, is that we need to anticipate obstacles. Anticipate obstacles. You know, as you make changes in your life, you need to know that it's not going to be easy. As you bring in the new, I mean, Jesus said the new sometimes bursts the old wineskins. I mean, like the new wine does. There's change. As you're trying to make changes right now in your life, there's going to be difficulty. There's going to be opposition. We packed our car full of luggage to go up to Michigan and Indiana. We packed the trunk. We packed between the seats. And we got a car top carrier that one of our parents' friends gave to us, and we packed it full. So picture this vehicle flying down the highway, packed full of not only 6 bodies, but all the stuff and everything that's on top of the car in the car top carrier. We get to Michigan, Indiana. We unload at the parents' houses. We're there spending time with everybody for Christmas. We're going out to eat one night with my parents. We're going to meet them at this restaurant that's at their mall. And they have a parking deck, and we pull into the lower level of the parking deck. We're pulling into the parking deck, excited about spending time with them. We're thinking about what's next. And all of a sudden, boom, we hear this sound on the top of our car. And I look out after I slam the brakes out, and I realize that they have one of these hanging beams that says, like 6 foot max or 7 foot max, whatever it was. And normally that's no problem. Our car would have fit fine under that, but we have this like extra 3.5 feet of a car top carrier on the top of our vehicle. And it smacked into this metal hanging deal. Now, thankfully, there was no damage, but I had to back up and hear that boom again as I backed out. The vehicle did not fit like it normally would because there was something different about it. There was something new about it. And, when you try to fit in your new vision for what God's doing in your new year and do something new, and you want God to make all things new, there's going to be some bumps. Jesus said when you put new wine into old wineskins, it can burst the wineskin. There's going to be some problems. There's going to be some challenges. But when you face that adversity, know that you're probably doing the right thing, because if it's easy, if it's convenient, you're probably not on track. But if you face obstacles and it costs you something, if it's challenging, if you're having to train yourself and sacrifice, then you're probably on the right track. The verse we started with is the verse I want to close with in 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 24. 1 Corinthians 9, verse 24. It tells us that all the runners run, but only one gets the prize. But there's another verse I didn't read you, verse 25. It says, everyone who competes in the games goes into strict training. They do it to get a crown that will not last, but we do it to get a crown that will last forever. It says, anyone who competes goes into strict training. So here's the point. You can try to have a better year than you did last year, but you'll probably fail. But if you train for it, things can be different. So we're going to end differently today, and I'm going to ask you to stay seated, and the band's going to play a new song, and it's called Making All Things New. And I want to encourage you as you sit and listen to this song to make this your time, because I know when you leave here, you're going to be busy. And you have things you got to go do. But right now, you have a few minutes here as we close. And I want you to sit. Maybe you want to close your eyes and pray. Maybe you want to write a few things down. Maybe you want to pull out your phone and type in some notes or put something into your calendar, a new discipline. Maybe you just want to take this moment and ask God that question. God, what is it that should bother me that needs to change? But it tells us in the Bible that for someone who's going to compete to win a temporary crown in this life in a race, a medal, they go into training. We're trying to win something eternal in our lives, in our hearts. So what are you going to do to train for this year to be different? That's the question I want to leave you with as you prayerfully think about the words of this song, making all things new. And as you pray and as you think, I'm hoping that God will make all things new. So sit, reflect, pray, and let's listen to this.
We hope you got a lot out of today's teaching. If you'd like to learn more, get connected, or begin to give, you can do so on our website. All the links are there. Check it out. We're glad you stopped by today, and we hope to see you in person very soon.